More international tourists visit Bali each year than the 4 million people who live here. Let's be honest, the sheer numbers of people visiting this little island, and it is little, has changed it, and many would say, not for the better.
It's gonna hat. I know it's gonna grab her hat.
Where it used to be seen as a tranquil place where you go for a spiritual awakening of sorts, now people imagine congested streets and the worst aspects of digital nomad culture. It was only in our last video that we said we were glad to leave Bali for Java. But in this video, we'll give you 3 reasons why we would still go to Bali, along with 3 important pieces of context. So if you're still curious about going for your first time or reassessing whether to go back, here's why it's worth considering. Reason number 1, Bali is not as overcrowded as you think. The first thing that may come to mind is terrible traffic, overrun tourist spots, and neighborhoods that are now basically westernized and English speaking.
We just drove through Canggu. Yeah, you can see how many people are here at Batu Belong Beach. It seems like this place is just going to get more packed as we approach sunset.
Yeah, we're just walking around the beach now. You can see so many lounge chairs and people just hanging out. And then music, very Western.
A lot of house.
It's very touristy.
When first arriving in Bali, my perception was that every place on the island would be super crowded, but that turned out not to be true. Some places we went were refreshingly and surprisingly calm. It turns out that of the millions of tourists that visit Bali each year, over 70% stay in the same 2 areas. The first, known as South Bali, includes hotspots like Kuta, Uluwatu, and Canggu, where we just were. The second area is Ubud, which has the informal title of Bali's spiritual capital, just adjacent to South Bali. Ubud has a rich spiritual history that is woven into the architecture of the city, even places like our homestay. But it has not been immune to the distortions of tourism. So where do the other 30% of tourists go? They go further north, to the mountains.
And I didn't realize how high up Munduk was.
Look at that. That is the ocean reflecting the sun, and that's the sun shining on the ocean.
Or they go further east, to the coast, which is what we did.
Oh, what a beautiful, I mean, it just has a calm, relaxing vibe. And it's like 5:50, that's a rush hour in Canggu, but it's like there's no car. Like we don't hear honking, we don't hear car engine, we just enjoy the nature.
The mountains of northern Bali have a lot of peace and quiet, and a lot of waterfalls. From time to time, you might even be shocked to be by yourself.
We are just starting a few days in Ahmed in Bali. This is still an area that's a little bit remote. Plenty of people come here, but you really don't feel it. And we're staying at a nice little bungalow. It's very, very secluded. It's under like multiple huge banyan trees. So you kind of feel like you're encompassed by shade.
Tourism on the East Coast revolves around the beach, snorkeling, and scuba diving.
But the beach is quite lovely, and most of the beaches here do have all these boats that you can see behind me because it is a fishing village and people actually go out every morning, likely before dawn. I haven't checked on that.
So if you like fish, Ahmed is the perfect place to have it. One of my favorite dishes in Indonesia was this Balinese pepes ikan.
The sauce is what makes this dish incredible. So definitely give it a try because it's a flavor I haven't had in any other kind of meal. It's a truly unique Balinese dish.
Speaking of which, reason number 2, you might still want to go to Bali. Bali's culture is still unique. There's nowhere in the world quite like Bali. People are first drawn in by the striking architecture and endless photo ops. But over time, you realize this visible beauty is just the surface of a rich, complex spiritual tradition that goes much deeper.
Local people come up
Yeah.
here? Okay. Every day?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then at home almost every day.
Okay.
Big temple is when here holiday.
These woven baskets are called Shanong Sari and are offerings to gods and spirits to help maintain cosmic harmony. In Bali, you will see these offerings everywhere. When you consider the dedication it takes to put these together, it gives you a sense of how central spirituality is in everyday life. We would come across these offerings again in a very unexpected place. The third reason you might want to consider Bali is because you love your hobby.
You can definitely see why this is a good place for surfing. A lot of them are getting really good waves that they're up there for like, it seems like a full minute or something, like a ridiculously long time.
Bali isn't just a good place for surfing. The first wave of visitors to the island were surfers, propelled by a documentary that came out in 1972.
Welcome to Bali, Dada!
Terima kasih.
They came for the surfing, but gradually that wasn't the only reason people were coming. At first for spiritual seeking, then for the social scene, and soon you had tourists coming for a myriad of reasons. And Bali, particularly South Bali, evolved to meet people's interests.
Whether you're like a big party goer, you're a surfer, you love fitness, if you come to Canggu, you can really make a vacation out of whatever you love.
So yeah, we just walked through a few of the surf shop here. Surf board rental, surf lesson, coconut, long share, whatever you want. Maybe one day we will do the surf lesson.
Maybe one day. I took one in Nicaragua. I don't know if I'll be very good at it.
Now we'll show you what we have done in Canggu. We have done more than just resting. Maybe surfing could be
Added into our list of random activities. You know, we're doing this long-term travel, but both of us kind of care about staying in condition, especially as we're thinking about doing more elaborate hikes in the future.
For us, this meant trying out CrossFit for the first time. And we even found a place to do aerial acrobatics. But before booking your ticket today, let's have real talk about some important context. First, Bali's infrastructure is stretched very thin.
Right now we're just a little past 3 o'clock, so rush hour is officially starting. The traffic is pretty much at a standstill.
At least we have a little bit of sidewalk to walk on it, but you pretty much see traffic everywhere.
You don't always have sidewalk.
Yeah.
Sometimes the motorcyclist will come up on the sidewalk.
There's a broad consensus that current infrastructure is not adequate for the numbers of people coming into the island. Even the one airport serving Bali is expected to reach max capacity by 2030. There are plans to open a second airport in the north, but this is a few years down the road. Second, locals are more sensitive to cultural impacts than before. I have a confession to make.
Hinduism is probably one of the religions that I know the least about, so it's been fascinating to be here in Bali.
A lot of people are like me when they come to Bali. They don't know a whole lot about local Balinese beliefs, but are quickly entranced by the magic of the surrounding temples. A lot of times, pictures take precedence over the sacred.
A lot of times the temples will have 3 main courtyards, and one will be more for secular activities. There might be a little bit more openness to people entering those areas.
But not always, as I'll explain.
But then there gets to be 2 other courtyards that are more restricted. So one of those is where there's a transition from the human to the divine. It's kind of a preparatory space for the third type of courtyard, strictly for the most holy rituals that are practiced.
Even though the Balinese have historically welcomed tourists, tourism today can feel a bit like a runaway train for locals that threatens Balinese culture. So temple access overall has gotten stricter, especially neighborhood temples, and sites designated for tourists are tightly regulated. When you understand the big picture, it makes sense.
So we have to go get the sarong. We just got our ticket for the temple, the Pura Tirtha and pool.
And it's interesting too, because one of the instructions is find the information to understand about what exactly the ritual is. So it's kind of like basically saying, I don't know what you're doing.
So essentially we have to do the offering and then we can do the ritual. You know, we have to go through 13 different fountains, and then for each blessing we just have to do each prayer for each of the fountains. I have covered everybody I know. One of the most interesting experience, and is humbling because you have to wait in line. And I'm really fortunate and it's appreciated that the Balinese temple and Balinese people allow tourists to participate in this such an important tradition.
Even when we may not fully understand it yet. Third, Indonesia is a big country with over 17,000 islands and over 280 million people. But more than 50% of all international tourists visit the tiny island of Bali. Bali remains at the heart of Indonesia's tourism strategy, and growth is still a goal, in spite of common concerns of overdevelopment. Bali has not peaked. If your heart is set on Bali, now might be as good a time to go as any, because it may only get busier. But don't forget that there are other islands out there with unique cultures of their own, and you may even run into a reminder of Bali.
So we were just wandering down the lake here by Mount Rinjani, and we stumbled upon these alms that we saw all over the place in Bali.
So Mount Rinjani, as Mark mentioned, is very important to Balinese people. Was where the god resides. This lake is in the crater. In order to access this, you have to hike at least 9 hours. So whoever come here, it's important to them to bring this stuff. They have to carry with them this stuff, in addition to hiking gear. And it's really important to these people to show respect and offering.
We'll be headed to this island next. Please take a moment to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. We know around half of you all are watching on TV, so appreciate the few extra steps it takes.